Hello, hi. This is Nishant Malhotra, and I'm with Ms Shilpa Pophale. Fantastic, great to be here. Thank you for joining the Middle Road.
Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, so give a very brief introduction. You are the managing director of Electronica Finance Ltd. It's a pioneer and a leading innovator in providing world-class sustainable solutions in micro, small, and medium enterprises sector, especially in energy efficient machine financing. And in many ways, I can say you're the innovator in India. You're the ones who went
Yes,
there and,
yes, that's
and
true. Yeah.
innovated. And under your fantastic leadership, Electronica diversified into concentric sectors in micro lending. You have an asset size which is today 180 million. It's a huge, over a decade, it's moved from 10 million
Yes.
dollars. The profit after tax has grown 18% CAGR over a decade. That's a fantastic achievement in this sector. And income has grown by 23%. Now, one of the most fantastic things Electronica Finance has done is like how you've raised funding. Yeah, you recently encouraged capital, a very focused in sustainability sector from New York-based impact investor and advisory company. They have invested about $14 million in your venture. You have raised $10 million in
Yes.
in Green Masala. We will come to
Yeah.
that. This is something where I had made a brief presentation, and this is one of the best ways of going to offshore
Yes.
market and raising capital. And
Yeah.
it's very innovative. I just loved it when I heard your story. I said we need to talk about this.
Yeah.
So about 10 million dollars. The first NBFC, as a
Yeah.
matter of fact, and responsibility, one of a very prestigious
Yes.
company in climate change, impact investor invested in it. So thank you. And you're also a partner of SIDBI.
Yes.
That's a very prestigious
Yes.
achievement.
That is for quite some time. We are dealing with SIDBI for more than 12 years now.
Yeah, so thank you for joining, and you have done so much of work, and as I just take some of the some of the analysis in small and medium enterprises micro sector. First of all, not only you have been India is actually 29% of the GDP is today coming from micro, small, and medium enterprise sector, and Indian government, of course, is trying to go to 50% of that, and the Narendra Modi's program of $5 trillion. That's one of the major enablers.
And just to add to that, 40% of employment generation is through MSME sector today in India.
So that's a fantastic
Yes.
statistics. And also I read a bit, 95% of the 28 million US companies are in micro sector. Forget about the SME sector. So so how big that sector is.
Yeah.
So, you're creating jobs, you've been you're going to underserved markets, you're doing a lot in sustainability sector. You've been, like I can say, the bellwether company, which companies go to be emulating. So, would you like to elaborate how the process began?
Okay, so I will not go to a much detailed description, but because we have a background of more than 28 years in financing now, we are basically part of a manufacturing group. So this group was started by my father around more than 45 years back, along with two other directors, and we were into manufacturing these machines, these CNC machines. So these machines used to be purchased by very small customers, typically job shop kind of activities, and those customers in those days, it was very, very difficult for them to raise finance. Banks are not generally eager to fund small customers. Those days, it was even more so. And that is how Electronica Finance came into existence, basically to support our group company customers to helping them in purchase of their equipments. So that is how we started. So our group companies were predominantly into two sectors. One was machine tools, which are dependent on auto and engineering segment, and another was plastics. So we were also into manufacturing of plastic injection molding machines. So these two sectors, we decided that why can't we fund these customers, and why can't we fund customers who are buying machines from others also. So that was the genesis of EFL, you can say. And later on, we thought that the way we are financing in these industries, maybe we can increase this foray into other segments also. So we started developing, looking at other verticals which are into manufacturing itself. So these include like textile machines, then woodworking machines, printing machines, to name a few. So these became various verticals of EFL. So but all these customers were into manufacturing segment, and in manufacturing we had a certain background because we were working with these type of customers for quite some time in the group, and I would like to say that we had that expertise to assess these customers, because these customers' needs are very unique. Typically, our customers are very small. They are typically one man show, one person is managing everything in the business, and they're technocrats. They are mostly from engineering backgrounds, so they don't understand finance to a great extent. So we thought that this is a real need of the industry. This is a real bottom of the pyramid. So we decided, why not help out these customers in their equipment needs, and later on we started developing other products also for this customer segment.
So you mentioned that they're technocrats. Was it much easier to make them understand, okay, this is what it's going to be, because they would be early adopters of technology in a way.
Yes.
So very open to different kinds of
so technology wise, what I can say is our customers were technology wise, they were very good. They had fantastic products to offer, but finance wise, the knowledge of finance is something which is generally lagging, because in India at least, and I think it must be the case across the world, that for professionals, finance knowledge is not actually imparted. So they don't know much about finance, they don't know much about balance sheets. So if we ask any question to them about their financials, they will generally say that, why don't you ask my chartered accountant? So that is the case even today many times, because they know their business, they know their products, they know their customers, but they don't understand finance to a great extent. So most of the time we take a consultant or guide kind of approach when we are discussing with customers, and we try to tell them that what they should focus on, what they should do going forward.
Yes. Yeah, I read somewhere there's in India, if you want to go to 50%, I mean, there's a $239 billion of capital, gap, which you come in and you're doing a fantastic job. Right? So there's something very unique about your company, and something really interesting. You have a NPA, non-performing assets, when you're talking, which is less than 2%. Now that's an incredible story in India, considering that the average is 10%, and NBFCs went way beyond. We had a huge crisis in between. So how is this game-changing thing? How are you managing to keep NPS less than 2%?
Yeah, so we have always been focused on collections and recovery. Means I can say that is in our DNA. So we always used to say that more than lending, we are a collections company, because in any lending business, what is most important is, are you in a position to collect from the customers? So there are two parts of this. One is, of course, selection of the customer. If you select the customer right, then you are not likely to go wrong in terms of your quality of credit. So customer selection is, the process is very thorough for us. There is almost 3 or 4 levels of checking of any customer, because before we onboard them, and that pays the dividends, that pays us the fruits, because what we see is, if you are cautious and careful when you take the customer with you, then generally you don't face the problem of NPAs. Another part of this story is how quick and fast you are in terms of your collections. So the instructions to our field teams are that if any customer defaults, if he cannot pay you on time, you have to visit the customer within 48 hours time. So the time limit in which you should touch base with the customer is in hours, not even in days. Okay. So if you are that quick and that fast, then then the urgency of payment is also there in the mind of the customer.
So have you sort of used a bit of technology looking at previous data? How do you figure out which customer? I went to your site and I understand a lot of times are secured loans. You look at a huge credit history. But where do you think other people could have? Was it like too aggressive lending a lot of people were doing? And
so aggressive lending is one part. By nature, Electronica Finance is a secured lender. So we typically don't like anything which is unsecured. That is because of our pedigree and of our background. So we look for some kind of a security in any loan. Very few times we take some unsecured exposures, but that is very cautious. So we look at the collateral security. As I said, we also look at selecting the right customer, and also what we believe in is, are you really understanding the customer? So according to me, that is very important, because many times what we have seen is, in our segments at least, we hardly see any intentional default. So customers will not default because they want to default. They become defaulters because of the situation. and the situation changes because some of their estimations go wrong, or what we have seen is they get into a very different, very large project, and that is why they come into problem. So if you understand your customers right, then again I think there is a very less likelihood that you will go wrong in your lending.
So has been there any previous experience which you think helped you come out with an analysis? Okay, this is something which we should be doing while we are going to be giving out loans.
Yeah, so like if you take current situation when auto industry in India is facing a challenge, and of course if our customers are dependent, few of the customers, if they are dependent on auto segment, then they are going to face challenge because their business reduces. That is one. Their cash flow also gets delayed, and it is possible that they can get into default. So in such a situation, what we have learned through our experiences, if you are again with the customer in his difficult times also, then generally you manage to help them pass through this situation. So we call that as health check visits. Okay. So these are of course not health check in the real sense, they are credit health check visits. So most of our people, they visit on the fields, they meet the customers, and they try to judge what is going on in the market, what is the situation, is the situation really worsening in any particular segment or any particular geography maybe. So this kind of knowledge, and if you build into a system, this kind of processes are there, then you get some early warning signals also, and you can act fast and you can come out of the problem quite quickly.
Because your TAT is also less than a day, it's very quick. So so another thing, you're a partner, like I mentioned, you're with SIDBI,
yes.
And that's a huge initiative.
Yeah.
So there is a plan which is known as the Credit Linked Capital Subsidy Scheme, which is launched in 2015 under Mr. Modi's government. And that's been a huge success.
Yes.
They would like to talk about how did it enable, the whole social ecosystem in microfinance.
So this credit link capital subsidy is in existence for more than I think 7-8 years now. So it is for customers who want to purchase capital goods, and it is 15% of the loan amount, but it is linked to the credit which is given to the customers. And for the customers who are into MSME segment, 15% is a huge benefit. So of course it is very attractive for the customers, and it helps them in actually going little aggressively in terms of their investments in capital goods. So it is a good scheme, and in between it was actually discontinued. Now I think last 1 year or 6 months it is again restarted.
And you feel because of the scheme, there's been a sort of a tangible, of course, many people would be, just because of the scheme, it might have just nudged a lot of micro or SME segment to come out with a loan. Maybe they might not have ever come before.
So my experience is little opposite to this, because suppose if any customer plans to invest only because of subsidies available, then generally his business model is not that strong. Okay. So what we guide the customer is that you shouldn't make your plan on the basis of subsidy which is available. So your project should be viable in itself. It should not depend. It should be self-sustainable. It should not be dependent on any government help. Because what happens is this is government funding ultimately. There is a possibility that maybe you will not receive it on time, or it will get delayed, or these things also happen. So customers' cash flow should not be dependent on this subsidy receipt.
Yeah, very true. But it's like more of a catalyst, more of an enabler, right?
It's an enabler. It is
very sound business to ever go into that.
Yes.
Right? So now we come to, of course, recently you had a $14 million infusion from Encourage Capital. Now, Encourage Capital is like very specifically focusing in India. They've done various other investments. I think they've just recently closed $100 million solar funded fund, which they are talking about. Yeah. And the other thing, which, coming to that, before you have gone to the Masala Bond market.
Yes.
You raised about $10 million, and one of the main reasons you got funded, of course, is from responsibility, because India has a huge, the manufacturing industry is giving about 45% of the greenhouse emissions.
Yes.
And you have been a leader in terms of coming out with very innovative green funded projects.
Yes.
So I think this is where one of the core competency lies. So one, would you like to talk about how this partnership is going to enable that, and how you have also taken steps in encouraging green lending, and how this is?
Yeah. So the funding, the Green Masala bonds which we raised from responsibility, actually when they studied what our lending pattern, we came to know, of course, we knew it, but actually it was proven on the paper that whatever machines we have been financing, they're all energy conserving machines. So we were able to prove to them that whatever greenhouse emissions otherwise the customers would have got, they are considerably reduced because of these high-end machines which are technologically very advanced. So because of that, we could raise Green Masala bonds. Again, it was a unique transaction because at this size, means $10 million size, generally Masala bonds are not raised. Generally, the ticket size are quite large and sizes are large, and also mostly banks have raised it. So for a small NBFC, raising this was definitely a unique feature for that project. And also the nature of the transaction also was such that it was Green Masala bonds. So Green Masala bonds was a first time ever in India. So I think it was a good thing for us. Of course, those days we were just coming out of the crisis which happened because of ILFS fall down, and that helped us a lot in terms of our that in that period for our funding. It was a great help. And with Encourage Capital, because this fund is solar fund, so they have actually what we have discussed is most of the focus in near future will be on developing rooftop solar as a new product for MSME customers. Right now, even if there is an awareness about rooftop solar funding, most of the customers are not really very enthusiastic right now. And in financing wise also, there are hardly any players who are aggressive in rooftop solar financing. So we think it's a green field, and we have decided that we will take it up as a aggressive measure for us going forward. And the background of Encourage Capital is it's an impact fund. One of the promoters is James Wolfenson. So earlier this was Wolfenson Wealth Management. James Wolfenson had been president of World Bank for more than two terms. So that is a great pedigree, and because they are going to back us up in terms of developing solar finance, we think we will be able to do a good job. And also now, because the awareness is also increasing and prices of solar panels have come down quite substantially, now the customers are also quite interested in terms of putting up rooftop solar. For our customers, it is going to be great benefit because their power consumption, whatever cost they're bearing right now, will be reduced very substantially. So we have taken aggressive targets for next 5 years in terms of solar financing.
Oh, fantastic. So you talked about solar, and that is what actually was my next question. I've already answered it. So this is very interesting analysis, because Indian government by 2022 wants to put 100 gigawatt. Yes. Out of that, 40 gigawatt is, like you correctly mentioned, is rooftop solar. Yes. And Encourage Capital has found that at least there's a capacity of 15 gigawatt and $9 billion is what they are funding in. So, of course, I was thinking, would you be going into that? Would you be funding it? And
So we have already started tying up with system integrators for solar financing. So initially, we will have a separate team who will be totally focused on rooftop solar financing. But focus is going to be MSMEs, because we believe that is our core. And that is the genuine need of the hour. And so even if it is into service industry or manufacturing industry, our focus of MSMEs is not going to change going forward.
Yeah, so the Green Masala Bond, and that's something very interesting, is because you go to the market and you said you did a $10 million transaction. No doubt, you have usually big size. But the great part is, like, there was still a demand, and responsibility, one of the best investors came to you and invested. Usually Green Masala Bond would be very innovative because you're putting a currency risk also on the investor, and it's a great way of going to the market. Now, how did that sort of the whole idea come in? Because this is something which is not being done, which is not being tapped, and you have been very futuristic in tapping this market, because in a way this would be a 3-year bond.
No, it's a 5-year bond.
5-year bond.
Yeah. So it was a unique product. I agree. And when we started working on it, almost I think we were working on it for more than 6 months. Around 8 months, we were working on this Green Masala Bonds raise. And at that time, I also really didn't thought that it will go through, because at this level, also at this, you can say, size, it was quite a challenging thing. But what we thought is that if we are sure that what we are financing is definitely energy efficient and it is conserving energy for the customers, then we will be able to raise these Green Masala Bonds and that. So the way we went about is we actually hired a third-party agency who did the audit of all the assets which we are financing.
And Deloitte, I think it was Deloitte.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So no, Deloitte was they had arranged the funding, but there was a third-party audit which happened, and they actually assessed all the financing which we do, and we were able to prove that it is definitely energy efficient. So because of that, this entire funding we could fit into Green Masala Bonds as an offering.
So here I'm trying to understand is that because you follow sustainability very closely, you did your leadership course at Harvard Business School, you went to also ISB. So did all the education and academics also help you to, identify, okay, this is one way of raising, because I recently read a report that the average cost of capital raised is also less if you go through the Masala Bond. So this is something which, did it encourage you that?
The education which you are mentioning is that is quite a old story, I can say, more than 10-15 years. So what I think is, point is that you have to keep on innovating. So let it be in your fundraising, or it can be in your lending, or in your innovating in terms of identifying different customer segments. So innovation, I can say, is in our DNA. That comes from our pedigree of engineering background for the group, where R&D used to be a day-to-day affair. So we also like to call that as R&D of our own. So it is in fundraising also. Fundraising, can we look at some different instruments? Can we look at some different modes of financing? So the SIDBI arrangement which we are talking about, it is a credit delivery arrangement. And it is so unique that we were the first NBFC who actually could do it along with SIDBI. So that was also one part of innovation. The various industries and products which I was talking about, all of them were I can say innovated by us. Machine financing in those days was unheard of. Machine financing without any other property as a collateral or any other collateral support. It was definitely unique. So we like to think that we are quite innovative. One of our values is think original, and I think we think original in that sense.
Yes, this is very original. There's no doubt about it. You talked about SIDBI and you talked about R&D. So have you kept a benchmark that, okay, let's invest this percentage of money in R&D, because I think R&D is one of the most you keep R&D specifically in a sector which is so much driven by captive investments. Would you think you're trying to put a benchmark here?
So in service industry, because though our background is manufacturing, right now where AFL is in service industry. So it is not as in terms of part of our expenses or something, but we have a separate in finance terms we call that as a strategy team. So at least for last 7 to 8 years we have a separate strategy team who keeps on looking at different opportunities in market. So we keep on innovating, we keep on thinking which is the other industry, which is the other maybe customer segment we should focus on, or is there a way to offer new products to the same customer segment and maybe serve them better. So that has been, so it is not in terms of just a percentage of expense, but a separate team always keeps on looking at opportunities in the market.
Yeah, and so we come to the question which I had later. Of course, you talked about other sectors. You've gone to institutional lending.
Yes.
Now, that is a bit different from, of course, there are overlap sections and you have core competencies which would map here. How has that been experienced? How do you think that sector is sort of coming up?
So again, as I mentioned, it was the brainchild of our strategy team when we started with institutional lending. We call that right now we call that as FIG, Financial Institutions Group, and the idea was that there are in those days and even now there are many new companies, new NBFCs who are coming up. In fact, many new microfinance institutions also they were coming up in those days, and the market was expanding at a very rapid pace. services. So we thought that these are also MSMEs, but they are in financial services. So why not start tying up with them? There were two objectives to that. One was, of course, we wanted to increase our business and we wanted to support them. Another was that many of these players were focused on a particular geography, and they were present maybe in 2 or 3 states of India. So it was a very good idea to tie up with them, to finance them, so that we got that expertise which they have of that particular geography. So that was one of the great learning experience for us. They also had a few very interesting products. So I thought it is going to be learning. It is going to be a win-win if we can support them. They also can contribute to our business growth, and that segment itself gave us a few new business ideas.
Okay,
so that was a wonderful addition to our portfolio, I can say. And we have fantastic customer base, which are mostly MFIs and a very few NBFCs.
So you've got impact investing. You have more than 50 centers in India. Now, of course, you talked about you're going to be going to solar panels. Is there an idea of also going global? You think you're at a stage now where you have a sufficient funding, maybe in a year's time? Why not look at maybe some parts in Asia as a region? Or
not for next 5 years, I don't think, because right now I'm looking at our size and looking at the opportunity which India offers. I don't think we need to look at the complications of going overseas and funding in other countries. So one more new vertical which we have started is going to real small customers. So these are very small customers, smaller than our regular customer segment. These are kind of chaiwalas and kirana shops and customers in tea stalls, and those are into service industry. They are typically small businesses and they are into tier 2, tier 3 cities of India. So this is a new initiative for us. We have started around a year back and we have started only with Gujarat. So in Gujarat we have 35 branches. We will have 35 branches in this financial year, and later on we are planning to enter Rajasthan. So Rajasthan also we will replicate this model, and we will have another 35 branches, and then maybe we will look at 1 or 2 states in southern India. So India is itself has immense opportunities in terms of MSME funding. I know that opportunities are there in other countries also, but I think for next 5 years our hands will be full looking at what are the opportunities we can have here. And we have very aggressive growth plans in terms of increasing the business in India itself.
So, okay, this is great. You talked about tier 2, tier 3, but you talked about, tea stalls and businesses which will not be built. So how would you, usually take secured funding? What are the sort of security are you looking here for?
Here the security is, here it is only on the basis of property as a collateral. It is either residential or commercial property of the customer. So most of the times it is his residence, and but the financing is decided on the basis of cash flow of the customer. So the entire assessment is informal, because there is hardly anything on paper. These customers don't have income tax returns, they don't have balance sheets. So the assessment is on the basis of discussions and visual assessment. So we have to assess what is his business actually really, and on that basis we decide how much is the funding which we can offer to the customer. And generally the LTVs, loan to value ratios, are in the range of 20 to 30%. So suppose the customer's residence property is worth 50 lakhs and his cash flow support only 10 lakhs, we will fund only 10 lakhs to the customer. So it is a phenomenal segment. I can say the entrepreneurship which you see at that level, ground level, it is fantastic. You can't compare it with what you see in other organized sector or in the bigger cities, because none of these customers are more educated. They are not more than 10th or 12th passed, and still the entrepreneurship which you see at that level is very different.
So now we are talking about then the rates also would be higher here. And
yes.
So you think they'll be able to manage that? They are still making.
So the margins which they have in the business, they can easily afford to. Of course, our rates have to be higher because our ticket size is quite small here. So ticket size average is in the range of 4 to 5 lakhs. So our rates are comparatively higher. What otherwise we would have offered to the organized customer.
And so when you're talking about your average ticket size, before you went to this segment, what sort of, are we looking at? What is your basic, when you talk about micro segment you're talking? In
machine finance, our average ticket size is in the range of 25 to 30 lakhs. 30. Sometimes we offer property loans also, industrial properties. There, the average ticket is in the range of 50 to 60 lakhs.
Okay.
So this segment, you will understand that it is very different from what we are dealing with, because there we are talking about very small customers and a ticket size of say 4-5 lakhs.
And but like you said, I mean, this is something you're very bullish on. You're going to be.
Yes.
So this is part of your strategy after your investment in. This is not related to the investment by Encourage
No,
Capital.
no. This is of course it is part of our business plan, which was given to the investor. But this we have been working on this product for more than 2 or 3 years right now, and we have just completed 1 year and 500 customers in this segment. We have served 500 customers.
But even if you even look at the normal segment which you are in, that's also is a huge. If you're going to tier 2, tier 3 cities, and if you're going to be funding, that's a huge scale up which you're going to be doing. So, but
definitely. So in existing segment also, because the way leave aside current situation, because current situation is that manufacturing is really facing challenges right now, overall in auto engineering segment especially. But otherwise, the way manufacturing is going to grow for next 5 years, it is a huge opportunity. So average growth rate even in the range of 20 to 25%, if this segment sees, it will be a fantastic opportunity for companies like EFL.
Now coming to a lot of you're doing a lot of corporate social responsibility work. I myself was at one point of time a volunteer in a visual impaired school. So you have you're doing, so you're contributing a lot towards quality education for less privileged. That's one of your initiatives here, which your flagship initiative Udaan. As I correct. And then you also have a tie-up with a non-profit in Pune, which very focuses education for people with disabilities.
Yes.
Now this has been a huge impact. So now one of the recent ranking which World Bank I think came out was that 39% of the global population has no formal education.
Yes.
I think this is a huge SGD also as a quality. So could you talk about how you're going to what has been the impact which you have seen till now, and what's going to be your future strategy specifically in CSR sector?
Okay. So CSR has been part of our company for quite some time, even before it was made mandatory by the government. Even before that, we had started in our small way. The project Udaan, which actually supports education of girl child. Why we thought of that was actually there we are financing the education of girl child of our customers' workers. So our customers are MSMEs, but their workers are actually very vulnerable in that sense. So their daughters' education we are sponsoring there. So the reason for that was we wanted to work in our own environment. So our environment means what? Our environment is MSME customers, and if we support their workers in terms of girl child education, we thought that will create good impact. The reason we selected girl child is also very specific. Generally, till 10th or 12th, the education is free for girls. And later on, actually, the families don't make an effort to make them self-sustainable. They don't start earning at that level. And generally, then after that, their parents start to looking for marriage, and they just marry them off. So So what we wanted to do was we wanted to see to it that we support these girls till the time they actually stand on their own. So we generally start after 10th, or maybe we start from 8th standard of the girls, and we take the responsibility of their entire education till they get kind of employment. And it is not only financial sponsorship. We actually support them in terms of we have a lot of workshops for them. We have mentoring programs for them. I read about
that. That's really interesting. I think the ongoing support which you're giving.
So because otherwise just offering just a scholarship or offering just support for their education is not good enough. Because that doesn't make the girls sustainable later on. And actually the saying, which is very old saying, it goes that if a girl gets educated, the entire family gets educated. So if you want to promote education, actually what is most important is that girl is made aware of this, the importance of education, and actually she starts earning something. So what we try to tell our customers is at least till the time that girl gets employment, you shouldn't marry her off. That is very important. So of course, we sometimes see that still that doesn't happen and they get married quite early on. But our effort is, and the program is at least a 3 or 4 year program. till the time they become.
That's very so. There's a substantial impact there. Just to sort of I know about this non-profits Nivant and
Nivant, yeah.
Mukta because so
Yeah.
I have actually gone there a couple of times. They have I was a volunteer at the Pune Vishlimpet school, so they have a tie-up, and I think. And
so the girls, the blind girls, which we means especially because we have taken it as a core that we will fund for girls' education. There also we have sponsored a few girls and their education in Nivant and the Vikasalaya. So you can say the urge to learn and to urge to prove themselves was even more than regular girls. That is what we found out. Yes. And it was such a fantastic experience to hear from them that all of them, they either wanted to get into government services, they wanted to become a radio DJ or some such things. So we found that if we support them, it will definitely be very fulfilling. And I'm very happy that few of them have got into employment since we started supporting them.
I read about it. It's a fantastic achievement,
yes, yes.
That is just also share a perspective. I recently read Abhijit Banerjee's new book, and you rightly mentioned, women specifically face but there's another story in one of the states where they don't let the guys get the men, go for higher education because they want them to be at home and help them. So they're letting the women go.
Okay.
Very interesting, stunning, this is precisely what is happening maybe globally all over India, but or maybe that's the journal. But there are certain specific cases where opposite is also happening.
Oh,
right.
That is quite surprising. I have not heard about it at least.
So so you have quite a few another initiatives now. Meeta is initiative in training social entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Now so I call myself a social entrepreneur. Just started, but and I feel this is a huge segment which is growing in India. There are a lot of ways you can have social entrepreneurs who could be have some one of the most pressing problems.
Yes,
That's what also United Nations is driving through the SGDs. Try or impact investors are coming in. So would you like to tell what impact it's having, and are you futuristic plans you will try to sort of go into a different
So idea with the Meeta project was that if we can fund those machines which are used in manufacturing sanitary pads, then that actually becomes a self-sustaining unit. So at least 4 women can get full-time employment there, and if you can tie them up with their sales initiative with some of the other NGOs, then that becomes a self-sustaining unit. So that was the idea with which we started that project Meeta, and I think there is a lot of scope. You can do a lot in terms of social entrepreneurship. Only thing is means the little bit challenge which I faced was that it was hard to find those kind of social entrepreneurs. So finally what we did with this project was we selected a few NGOs, and with their help we actually got into those projects. But the idea of developing social entrepreneurships means, at least for a company like EFL, it was not very easy to find those social entrepreneurs. And I think maybe there can be a few NGOs who can tie up maybe those social entrepreneurs with companies who wants to support them through CSR initiatives. That will help a lot. So our challenge was that basically at that time.
Even the startup funding nowadays, a startup plan is also funding a lot. But I think entrepreneurship is going to be changing around the whole world. There's a new segment starting where it remains to be seen. But of course, there are a lot of work happening for the less privileged people, like you mentioned. All right. Now, I was coming to a lot of questions. Of course, then we'll come to lastly, what is it driving you? When you look back over your journey, which you started with Electronica, what do you think would have been some of the key milestones, or do you think the nudges which helped you go and succeed in take those decisions which were very critical at that point of time to reach where you are reaching today?
So I think initially the initial challenge was when I took over. So it was also quite long back now, around 2003-04, when I took over the day-to-day operations of the company. We were facing huge challenges in terms of non-performing assets. We had a lot of defaulters in considering our size those days, and getting the control over collections and recovery was, I think, one of the preliminary challenges which I faced, and that developed me definitely in lending kind of a business, because practically what happens is collections and recovery is not very. It actually drains your energy. As work, it drains your energy. So to get used to that was quite difficult for me. It was definitely a change movement for me, because as a person I was not very hard, and I had to become hard, because this work you cannot do otherwise. This is a hardcore finance work, and which requires you to be really demanding. So that was a huge change for me, and I could do that. That is why I could go forward and get the little bit success which I have achieved in this. Other few milestones where there were various challenges, because this industry as such goes through various ups and downs. And I myself have seen at least 3 recession cycles. Oh, so 2008 was huge when Lehman Brothers happened, and that was a time when things were so volatile that we decided that we will take a pause and we will stop lending for some time, because the markets were too volatile. So these kind of situations have happened. Reserve Bank of India, actually, I don't know if you are aware, but the policies change very frequently. So that we have to deal with. And as a small company, because our asset size is not comparable to larger NBFCs. So for a company our size, to adopt to those changes is quite difficult. But what I believe in is, if you are resilient and if you cope up with the situation, you change fast, you take fast actions, then you manage to survive. And that is what we have done for more than 28 years now.
Yeah, you're not even survived. I think you're on a threshold of, you have, for example, you had very prestigious impact investors, you've raised funding. Do you think there's been a perception change, not only of India, but also the UN drive in sustainability SDGs? Now the world is like looking very closely at, what the good work is being done, specifically in sustainable space, and they're ready to fund you, and they're ready to, be with you.
Yes. Definitely. Now I think everyone is aware that time is running out for us. I mean, for human race, of course. And these initiatives now cannot take a backseat. And I think more than anything, the developed world has taken a focus on this. And that is why there is a lot of support which is being offered to companies like EFL, who are trying to do the work in this particular segment.
Okay. And you think, just before we go to the last question, you think you're going to be coming out with something very specifically, tuned for green financing? You're already doing it, but something more innovative, which you think could be again a game changer in this space? So
the rooftop solar financing, which I was talking about, it is for us right now, it's a new initiative, and it is going to take a lot of time and effort for us to develop that as a new vertical. But with support from Encourage Capital, I think we will be able to do it. And as I mentioned earlier, there are not many players right now in this segment. So I think if you consider even industries which are into services, there, because in commercial spaces, the power is actually much more costlier than for manufacturing. So across, if we can make this change, because of course it is kind of concept selling right now, because many of the customers, they are not aware also that if they put up a rooftop solar plant, then they can save so much in terms of their electricity cost. So it is kind of going to be a consulting work again for us to start with, and it's of course developing a market. So the way we have developed the market in machinery finance, I am quite hopeful that the same thing we will be able to do for rooftop solar financing also.
Sure. So when you talked about Encourage Capital, what sort of support they are giving? Of course, there's going to be a lot of management guidance here.
Yes.
A lot of expertise in the subject matter expertise. Yes. Is there anything they are?
So what we are working with them is a few organizations, especially US government organizations, who can offer grant for this project. So developmental costs can be taken care of. Initial research can be taken care of in this. Another support which we are expecting from them is in terms of expertise on quality of solar products, which products we should finance and which we should not. These two definitely will be a great help from them.
Yeah, I think it's a great initiative, and you've been in the right space, which is coming.
I think we are at because 3-4 years back, actually, we tried with financing rooftop solar, but those days I think we were ahead of time, because solar panels also were quite costly those days. So now the cost of solar panel is come down substantially, and so it is now definitely more viable for the customers.
Yeah, I think you have been like ahead of the curve for a very long period of time. I mean, a lot of things which you have done is unprecedented, at least by Indian standards. You came to machine financing way long before you even thought that would be a sustainable business. And so thanks. And now we come to the last question. Lastly,
Yeah.
would you like to share any moment which you think it could be one from your work experience, the other could be from any initiative which you've done in the separately, in social or corporate responsibilities, which sort of brightens your day, which you
So,
really.
actually, our vision is creating success stories for businesses. And I genuinely believe that we have helped thousands of customers in creating their success stories. So whenever I am on the field and I visit our customers, I like to do that, and I do that quite often. So when I meet them and when the customers tell me that because of you we have come to this level, otherwise we wouldn't have survived, that is the aha moment. And I'm fortunate to have many such aha moments. Just to name one, just last month we had a small customer get together here because we wanted to get customers feedback on a new initiative which we want to start. And one customer actually had come here along with his two partners, and he told me that around 12 years back we financed him. That time his annual turnover was 12 lakhs annually, and we financed him his first machine. Today his turnover is 120 crores, and that customer is so grateful that he told that I've got, because you invited, I've got all my partners and I'm here because I wanted to thank you personally, that because of you I have come to this level. So this is the real aha, I think, and this is what keeps me going. I genuinely believe that we are making an impact where it is absolutely needed, and that is a great satisfaction for me.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you, Shilpa. You have shared your thoughts here, giving time. So, like I said, Electronica Finance is not only a leader in visionary in enabling a sustainable social change and impact, which you're doing here, especially in the micro lending space, but you're very innovative in using the tools. The way you've gone and funded your business, the way the thinking is coming on, and you're getting the best business practices along. I mean, you're getting a global perspective. You have some very powerful, one of the most dominant people, like very prestigious, like you said, Encourage Capital Responsibility, which is now would be also encouraging you, guiding you in the path, right? So it was an absolute pleasure in meeting you, and I really wish you the best. I'm sure you'll be doing a fantastic job in the segment.
Thank you very much, and the questions were quite quite elaborate, and thank you very much for giving this opportunity to me.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks.